Hey guys, so today I have a part 2 to a recent video that I posted. Today I'm going to be sharing the hardest products to pan. I've got 9 products that I consider to have been very challenging to use up. In the part 1 I shared the easiest products to pan, so I will link that up here and in the description box if you'd like to check that one out. But if you're a project panner or you're thinking about starting a project pan, hopefully this will help you determine which products might be a little bit more challenging to use up. And even if you're not a panner, these products are well worth the price. You get a ton of bang for your buck because it takes a very long time to go through them. So these products took me between 8 and 16 months of dedicated panning to finish. So that doesn't include any amount of time that I was using the product before I put it in my project pan. For all of them, I will try my best to share about how much was left of the product when I started panning it. And I'll also share how many uses it took me from the time I put it in my project pan until it was done. Some of these are not even finished yet, but I can already tell you they are taking forever. And I've tried to rank these going in order up to the hardest to use up. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 9, we have one that I'm still not finished, but I have been working on this E.L.F. Smooth Matte Eyeshadow in Soft Beige for 8 months now. I've used it 139 times so far. I did take the stopper out 3 or 4 weeks ago, and there is a lot left in here. I don't know exactly how much longer this is going to take because I've never really panned something quite like this, but I'm guessing it'll be at least another 3 months. Just because there is a lot in there. And I don't even use this as an eyeshadow. I mostly use this as a bronzer, which if I was only using this as an eyeshadow, it would probably be taking me double that length of time at least to finish it. So I'm glad I've been using it in multiple ways, but I think most eyeshadows are really difficult to pan, but I would have thought that using it as a bronzer would make it much faster to go through, but it's still taking forever. Okay, next, another one that I'm still not done with, but I've got at least another few months left in this product. This is the Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer. I know a lot of you guys have panned this yourselves. I've seen other YouTubers pan these, and it takes a really long time. This is basically half the size of a foundation. It comes with 0.5 fluid ounces or 15 milliliters. So for something that you're only using maybe on your under eyes or in just targeted areas, that's going to take a really long time to go through. So major bang for your buck. They do also sell this in a mini size, which is nice, but I have been working on this now for 5 months, since January of 2021, and I started with about half of it left. And there is still so much in here, you guys. Look at this. When I remove the applicator, there is so much product on the applicator. So I have not even gotten to the point where I'm scraping at the sides. I leave this sitting upright and it does seem to be all settled down pretty low, but there just has to be so much around the sides because there's so much in here. In my last project pan update, I asked you guys to predict when you thought I might be finished with this, and a lot of people were saying the end of the year, maybe November of this year, or like late fall, and I agree with that. I'm definitely anticipating that this is going to take, I'm just going to go ahead and assume it's going to take all the way until December of this year, because if it is sooner than that, I'll be just over the moon excited, but if not, I won't be disappointed. So like I said, I've been focusing on panning this for 5 months now, and I've already used it 113 times. I use this almost every day as my under eye concealer. I haven't tried using it as a foundation yet, but I've thought about doing that just to maybe speed it up a bit. But this one, if you put this in your project pan, just prepare for it to take 1,000 years, unless you're using it as a foundation, but oh man. So a product that I panned last year that took me the majority of the year to finish was the Balm Shelter Tinted Moisturizer. This one took me 9 months of dedicated panning, and it was pretty full when I started, and I used it 107 times in that project pan, so it took a lot of dedication. I'm sure the main reason it took so long is because that tinted moisturizer comes with more than double your standard foundation or tinted moisturizer. It came with like 2.15 fluid ounces, I think. So really, really great value. I think they discontinued that, or it's gotten a lot harder to find. But if you have that product, just know it's going to probably take you a while to finish. But the nice thing is, after going through that foundation, all other foundations seem to be so much easier to use up. I actually had 2 foundations in my easiest products to pan video. So that's been a nice benefit, I guess, of working on that foundation all year last year. Another product that took me forever, one thing I found is that cheek products across the board take so long to use up. But the Jordana contour stick, if you guys have been watching my project pans since last summer-ish, then you are very familiar with that contour stick. You've seen me update it every single month just about since then. I did call it done in February of 2021. I had a little bit left that I had scraped out of the inside, but once I got to that point, I was realizing that it was really worsening my breakouts in this area. It wasn't causing them entirely, but it was making them much worse. But I dedicated 8 months to panning that contour stick, and I used it 167 times, and I did have a lot of it left. I might have only used like a quarter of it before then, if that. So it was a huge amount of product that I went through there, but that took a long time. But in general, in my project panning experience, cheek products are probably the hardest to go through. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned, I'm only looking at products from the last year and a half of panning. So anything from my 2020 or 2021 project pan are included in this video. I'm not going back to like 2019, 2018. I think I started panning actually in 2016. So I've had a lot of project pans over the years, but I'm really just looking at the most recent years just because, you know, over time, I'm sure my habits have changed, and just for the sake of consistency, and also my memory doesn't go back that far, so I'm just focusing on those 2 years. Another one that took forever to go through, I had this one in both my 2019 and my 2020 project pan, and it was the NYX Butter Gloss in Creme Brulee. It was just a sheer pink nude lip gloss, and this one took me a total of 9 months of dedicated panning to use up, and those were 9 months across those 2 years. And I calculated that I used it at least 149 times throughout those 9 months, but that of course doesn't count uses before putting it into my project pan. That one took a long time. There was 1 month where I think I used that over 40 times, just, you know, reapplying it, using it as like a lip balm almost, just trying to get as much use out of it as I could. And I think I did take the stopper out of that one, so I did get a lot more uses out of it than if I hadn't taken the stopper out. Taking the stopper out, it did get kind of messy and annoying, so in hindsight, I kind of wished that I hadn't done that, but either way, I was able to get a ton of bang for my buck. What is that, like, I think it cost less than $5, that lip gloss, but I certainly got every penny's worth out of that. But in my experience, lip glosses really do take forever. I'm currently panning a Dose of Colors lip gloss, which actually comes with less product than the NYX Butter Gloss, and it is taking quite some time. Not into the territory of some of these, but it's challenging. Another one that surprisingly took a long time was actually a face powder, and generally face powders haven't been that challenging for me to pan, but this one, I don't know, I think it was a combination of it came with a lot of product, and it also was kind of like a hard pressed powder. It was the Physicians Formula Healthy Powder. I was working on that powder for the majority of 2020. I had it in my project pan for a total of 9 months, and I used it 163 times. And it was mostly full before I put it into my project pan. So it took me from, I think, like April of last year until the very end of the year to finish that powder. And for most of the time that I was using that, I was actually powdering my whole face. I wasn't even just using it on my under eyes like I use powders now. Alright, another one that I'm sure you're very familiar with hearing me talk about if you've been keeping up with my project pans last year or in previous years, but the E.L.F. Long Lasting Lustrous Eyeshadow in Soirée. Oh my goodness. That eyeshadow was never ending. I had it in my 2020 project pan from January till October, but I also had it in my Finish 13 by Halloween project pan in 2018, which that was long before I ever started tracking my uses. But interestingly enough, even though it took me as long as it did to finish that, in 2020, I only used that eyeshadow 45 times. I don't know how many times I used it in 2018, maybe another 20 or 30 times, but that's not that many uses compared to a lot of the other products on this list. So I'm sure I would have gone through it much faster if I had used it more, but eyeshadows specifically are hard for me because I don't like to wear the same eyeshadow every day. With some of these things, I can wear the same foundation, concealer, primer every day with no problem, but eyeshadow, I get bored very easily. I need to switch it up, so that is why I think it takes me so long to use up a lot of eyeshadows. And that's an eyeshadow that I really could only use as an eyeshadow. I couldn't really multitask it for other things because it was like a foiled sparkly eyeshadow. So 14 months total between the 13 by Halloween Project Pan a few years ago and last year's Project Pan. When that eyeshadow was finally done, it was, wow, that was a moment to celebrate. All right, number 2, we're getting to the ones that I consider to be the absolute hardest. I didn't even realize this one took as long as it did, but it's a blush, and it was the Wet n Wild Rosé Champagne Blush. This blush spanned 3 years of Project Pan. So I actually had this in my 2019 Project Pan, my 2020 Project Pan, and the first couple of months of my 2021 Project Pan. I didn't realize that I'd had it in so many Project Pans, but it took me a total of 15 months of dedicated panning to use it up. There were a couple months in between where I took a break from it, probably didn't use it much in those months. And then of course, you know, I've used it a little bit before ever putting it into my 2019 Project Pan, but when it was in a Project Pan, I used it 184 times. Wow. Mostly as a blush, but sometimes as an eyeshadow as well. Dang, blushes really do. I've never used up a blush quickly. I can't think of a single. I think I've only actually used up completely 2 blushes. That one and the Lauren Brooke Cosmetics blush, if you remember. That one was back in 2019. The Lauren Brooke Cosmetics blush in Sweet 16, that was a small blush too, but it took me so long. So yeah, blushes, contours, bronzers, highlighters too. It's been a while since I've actually used up a highlighter, but they all take 1,000 years. All right, my number 1 on this list is another eyeshadow. It's actually an eyeshadow quad that I'm still not finished with. The Wet n Wild Walking on Eggshells quad that I now have turned into a Franken bronzer because I was tired of using it as eyeshadows. But so far this has been in some Project Pan for a total of 16 months, starting in 2019, then I took a little break in 2020, brought it back into the Project Pan in 2020, and I've been working on it kind of ever since then. So this is what's left of it. I still probably have another few months. It is never ending, but lately I've been using it as a bronzer and still as an eyeshadow, but it's just all 4 of the shades mixed together now. But 16 months that I've been working on it so far, 16 months and counting, and it's hard to say because there were 4 shades in it. It's hard to really measure uses, but from my records, the total number of times I've at least dipped into one shade in the palette or dipped into the Franken bronzer 151 times, and it's still going strong. So by the time I'm done with this, this might break 20 months, which would be crazy. So those are the 9 hardest products in my experience to pan. This doesn't count products from, you know, previous Project Pans, but these are all things that I've used up in the last year and a half that were very challenging. So I will link my easiest products to pan video below. I always recommend, whether you're just getting into panning or you've been doing it for a while, to do a mix of easier and harder products. You never want to have like only challenging products in your Project Pan. It's good to mix it up and have a few easier ones to help kind of keep you feeling motivated. But for me, the number 1 way I've found to go through products quickly is to just use them a lot. Find ways to multitask them. Use them every day if you can, or most days. Find creative ways to use more of those products and you will see progress. Looking back at my like tally marks and stuff from previous years, I used to really not use my Project Pan items very much. I would maybe use each one like 5 or 10 times a month, and now I'm using them 15, 20, 25, sometimes 30 times in a month, and that is, now I see a lot more progress than I used to. So go figure, you gotta use your products to actually see results. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little 2-part series. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. I will link all my Project Pan videos down below if you want to check those out. But otherwise, I hope to see you again very soon in my next video. Bye!